Hello, welcome back to Meet Me in the Movies. Noel T. Manning II here, hanging out with Mr. Greg Tillman over beside camera one. Greg Tillman, we do have a lovely studio audience back as always. We really do appreciate them. I'm not sure if we're seeing them or not. There they are, yeah. And they've been asking for autographs. And so we're trying to work out the autographs. Thomas, they were specifically asking about you and Douglas. So we're looking forward to getting those autographs from Douglas Davidson, who was our guest back there with Tim. Tim Foster back there on the Tim Cam in the studio, and then Thomas Manning. Welcome back, Thomas. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, well, appreciate you having me back. Yeah.
So, dude, you saw this movie, as Quentin Tarantino film called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Takes place in 1969, and you were born a few years later.
Just a few.
30 years later.
Yeah, 99. So,
30 years later,
yeah.
You were born. So, your references to what happened in 1969 are probably all wrapped up within this film. Okay, we'll share your thoughts on this film that really follows this aging TV and film star who is trying to figure out what to do now where he doesn't quite feel relevant.
Oh yeah, so you got Leonardo DiCaprio playing Rick Dalton, who's kind of a TV cowboy. I know you mentioned some Clint Eastwood influence on his character, definitely. And he's aging and he's realizing that maybe he doesn't have it anymore. Al Pacino plays a TV producer who kind of gets in his head and tells him, you know, you gotta try something fresh and different or you're gonna burn out. And he just kind of goes down this hole. He's a really vulnerable character, very insecure. He's basically an alcoholic, and he smokes all the time. He's got this really bad stuttering problem, and all of that is kind of impeding his work in the industry. And then, of course, you've got his best man on the side, Brad Pitt.
Who's a stuntman.
Cliff Booth, the stuntman. And he's very cool, calm, collective, very charismatic, and definitely they kind of balance each other out with their different personalities. And
I think the casting of this really solid across the board. There are several films within the film here because you're seeing elements of the filming take place of things that he's acting in.
I saw an article online that there are basically 10 films that you should probably see to fully appreciate the movie.
I share that. And but you know, this movie, the acting is phenomenal, and I really think that DiCaprio, again, he just kind of keeps raising his own bar.
Yeah,
you feel the same way?
So many layers upon layers upon layers to his characters. Like, you know, we saw him playing his own insecure character in the movie. Then we saw him playing characters within movies, within this movie. And you know, you kind of saw him struggling with his acting when he was filming those fake movies, and then but he was all doing that as a real actor, and it's just phenomenal. It's hard to describe, but
it really is. It's one, and it's Tarantino, and so with the Tarantino film, there's a certain bit of stylistic differences that really is his stamp. Structurally, it's completely unique to him, I would say. So, what are your positives out of this film?
Of course. All the dialogue is just tremendous. You wouldn't expect anything less from Tarantino. That's basically his staple, and just the long, drawn-out conversations and talking and talking and talking. And some filmmakers try to do that, and it just doesn't work. But for him, you're hanging on every word, and you're really into the conversation, even if it's just about, you know, like a hamburger they're eating or something like that. And really interesting to see that. And of course, technically, it was pretty beautiful as well. Incredible production design and cinematography and
sound design, the music score that was
the
chosen,
soundtrack, a lot of you know, deep cuts from the era, and
the acting. There's some violent scenes, and it wasn't CGI with people's faces getting beaten in. He brought back a legendary filmmaker to help with practical effects too for this. So what's your rating? Any in the negatives? Yeah, the pacing is off a little bit, but it's still, if you like Tarantino, it's well worth seeing.
Yeah.
What's your rating?
I'm about an A minus.
Okay.
I was about an A the first time. Second time I watched it, I kind of noticed some of the pacing was lagging, but still an A minus is really solid.
Any other final comments you want to make sure you share about this film?
Julia Butters, she's a 10-year-old actress, and she's in like 2 scenes with DiCaprio. She's only on screen for 10 minutes. She absolutely steals the show.
She does. She steals it from DiCaprio.
From DiCaprio himself, and she's going to be a star. Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. B plus for me, solid B plus for this Tarantino film.
I understand it's kind of based on the relationship between Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you know, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. But there's Yeah, and that makes sense. But there's definitely a nod to Clint Eastwood because this Rick Dalton's character was this TV Western guy who was just trying to, ended up, after that show was canceled, ended up doing bit parts in other shows as kind of the bad guy, but then he got cast to go to Italy to do these Italian spaghetti westerns.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely that.
I'll say, yeah, Burt was on a Western too, he was on Gunsmoke.
Yeah, so I think it was a combination
and
of
amalgam.
those two. But,
Interesting.
But well worth checking out. Thomas, quickly, give me a couple that relate to space.
Oh yeah, you got your space double feature. The Apollo 11 documentary, it was actually just released earlier this year, and it's going to be eligible for like the documentary awards, Critics' Choice Awards, like you're talking about. And it's one of the most technically impressive documentaries I've ever seen. Like you were talking about earlier in the show, Peter Jackson's "They Shall Not Grow Old." He took all this footage and restored it. That's basically, they did something similar with Apollo 11, and it's all footage from 1969, like 35 millimeter footage, and restored
70
it.
millimeter, so it was huge.
Yeah,
70
yeah,
millimeter,
yeah.
wide format. And then in the sound design, they
as
used
well.
real sound from the dialogue from the original, radio tapes and everything.
Yeah, it was like 11,000 hours of footage and audio they combed through to create this hour-and-a-half movie, and it blew me away.
It's
it
incredible.
Absolutely blew me away.
And watching it in the largest format possible is much better.
Is this the same Apollo 11 film that's been on CNN recently?
I think it was on something. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was on
probably
National
so.
TV.
But it's a documentary of everything original. But Todd Douglas Miller, we interviewed him and he was on the show, talking about that. But yeah, that's a great one. And then the second of the double feature.
First Man, directed by Damien Chazelle, and starring Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong. And this is like the dramatized version of the Apollo 11 mission, and was basically Neil Armstrong's story as he becomes first man on the moon. It really gives you a glimpse into his family life and some of the emotional factors that drove him to be who he was.
And you also got to see a non-astronaut related film, Michael Caine as a young kid, but he looks the same.
Oh yeah, 1969, The Italian Job, directed by Peter Collinson. And Michael Caine, he hasn't changed in 50 years. I mean, he's like the exact same guy. So this is kind of a crime heist drama. And the last 30 minutes, one of the most exciting practical car chases you'll ever see. It reminded me of something we might have seen in Edgar Wright's Baby Driver, which was just a couple years ago. This was back in 1969, and it just blew me away that we were able to create that practically. So
I agree. Great. Thanks, Thomas. Any final?